history books said in the 1220s there were upheavals in the capital of Thanglam, which is now Hanoi. The Lee dynasty's throne was usurped, and members of the Lee family were forced to be renamed or killed. Feeling great anguish at the collapse, the prince of the Lee family left the country, crossed the sea, and settled in the Korean peninsula. The prince that helped the Korean king expel the enemy was honored with land to live on. Nearly 800 years later, Korean descendants of the Lee family in Vietnam now number more than 1,000 living in the Korean peninsula. And they have come back to Vietnam, which they now call their home.
It's interesting how history can combine us all. A lot of the times, if we trace back our lineages, we can see that there are common bonds and common histories. On Talk Vietnam today, we're going to explore this idea of common bonds and common histories, and we're going to introduce you to a few descendants of the royal Lee family of Vietnamese history. On today's show, we have Mr. Lee Changkun, a member of the 31st generation of Lee's. He is the former chairman of the Vietnam-Korea Culture and People's Exchange Association and currently a businessman in Vietnam. Welcome, Mr. Lee, to today's show. Thank you for joining us. Chào anh. Your Vietnamese is very good. Now, you've been on various VTV programs, and I'm sure that many people know your name by now, the Lee name. Can you tell us how long you've been in Vietnam?
My work in Vietnam began on December in 1992.
1992,
yes.
Okay. So you've been here since, you came to Vietnam first time in
yes.
1992.
Yeah.
So when did you come to move to Vietnam?
When Vietnam and Korea signed a treaty of amity again, and the day I moved in Vietnam with my family was on August 2000.
2000.
Yeah.
So you came and you moved your entire family,
yeah.
and your whole family came with you to Vietnam in 2000. So before you were the chairman of the Vietnam-Korea Culture and People's Exchange Association, but now you do business here. Is that
yeah.
correct? So can you tell us a little bit about your business?
I'm doing a few small business, environmental business, which is recycling the waste polyethylene. And I'm also producing lithium-ion polymer battery for
lithium batteries.
Yeah,
okay.
Mobile phone and all kind of digital products to need.
Okay.
It's a high technology and the first time in Vietnam.
It's high technology, first time in Vietnam.
Yes.
So that's what your business is doing.
And I'm also handling a practice golf course in about 14,000 square meters in Da Nang.
So you are the 31st generation of the Lee dynasty.
Yes.
How many people do you think are members, are descendants of the Lee dynasty in South Korea now?
After the division of Korea during the Korean War, it is estimated that there are about 1,000 people in South Korea.
How do you get them together to meet one another?
Right now, there is a family association in South Korea, so we held a regular meeting once a year. So I still keep close relations with the Lee family in South Korea.
Okay.
Even though I moved to Vietnam.
You still keep in good contact with them. So can you tell me a little bit about how you went and looked for your past, looked for these people who are also part of the Lee dynasty? You know, it must have been a lot of work to locate all these people. Is that right?
In 1992, when Vietnam and Korea signed a treaty of amity, I met the Vietnam ambassador, Mr. Bin.
Oh, you met Vietnam's ambassador.
Yeah. And I explained about the Lee descendants who live in Korea. He also knew this history, and he was very happy to meet me.
Yeah.
After that, on May 1994, I alone visited the ancestral shrine of Lee dynasty and confirmed that it was my ancestors' homeland.
You went back to the homeland.
Then I informed this to the Lee families in Korea, and many Lee descendants could visit their ancestors' homeland. I made a 10-piece of wide paneled screen contained this story, and donated the Hanoi National University in 1995.
The panel.
Yes.
You have the 10 panels
10 piece.
that has the whole history of the,
Yes.
the Lee Tamtung. Now, let me ask you, the story of the royal Lee family, the Lee dynasty, is it very well known in Korea?
Yes.
Is it well known?
Yes.
So, can I ask you, how did that story become known in Korea?
From a grandfather, we heard this history already. Also, you can look for this history in the Korean historical book.
Ah, okay. So it's documented in
Yes.
the Korean history books.
Yeah.
So we know that the Lee dynasty homeland is in Dingbang district of Bakning province, which is near here. What can you tell us about the first time that you went back to the family's homeland?
I dissolved in tears when I came to Vietnam and went to Dingbang. And I believed that Prince Lee Dong Tung's wish more or less come true. And then I was determined to do my best for Vietnam's development.
No.
After the 1994, I annually participated in the anniversary of the founding Lee for 13 years.
13 years.
Without any absence.
Every 13 years you've
Yeah.
been going to this anniversary.
And also I visited Dingbang whenever there was any other event during something like New Year, that.
So you go back to the homeland. That's great. Well, Mr. Lee moved his entire family to Vietnam to live here permanently, and they've adjusted to the lifestyle here. So let's take a look what a day in the life of the Lee family is like.
Lee Changkun's six-member family has been living in this comfortable apartment in Hanoi for 6 years. Residing in Vietnam for business, Kun decided to settle in the land of his ancestors, Vietnam. Kun sold all of his assets in South Korea, brought his 82-year-old father to live with his family, and spends much of his time getting in touch with local members of the Lee family. Kun's decisions are always supported by his father, his wife, and children.
I have been living in Vietnam for 4 years. Life is better than in South Korea because we are all together here. I'm pleased with what my son is doing for the Lee family.
Kun's sons are the only Vietnamese Korean students enrolled in a local school. The boys can speak Vietnamese and are good at all subjects, like most local children. A stable job and a happy family with good children, much of this is thanks to Kun's quiet support system, his wife.
We have fully integrated into the life in Vietnam. The food is good and the job is stable. When I first came here, my youngest boy was only 20 months. He cried all day when he was sent to the local kindergarten. But they have fully adapted to Vietnam. I often go to school to pick up my children by taxi motorbike.
Kun's family has only returned to South Korea 3 times to visit relatives and friends during the past 6 years, as they now call Vietnam their home.
You have a very beautiful family, Mr. Lee. It looks like they enjoy their time here in Vietnam. Do you often go back to Korea?
My children visited Korea for the first time in this summer.
This summer?
In 6 years.
Wow, in 6 years. So life is here. Now, your children are in the studio. Your family is in the studio with us today. And I'd like to ask them a few questions about what life is like here. Hello, chào em.
Em tên là Lý Yu Chin, em đang học ở trường quốc tế.
Trường quốc tế, còn em trai?
Em tên là Lý Học Chan, em đang học trường Việt Nam.
Còn em út?
Em tên là Lý Việt Quang, em đang học ở trường thực nghiệm với anh trai.
Em thì học tiếng Việt ở đâu à?
Từ khi chúng em đến Việt Nam, bố nhắc chúng em phải biết tiếng và văn học của Việt Nam. Nên em đang học tiếng Việt Nam ở trường.
Em cũng nói rất là tốt. Em thấy đời sống ở Việt Nam thì em thấy thế nào?
Em cũng thích như bên ở Hàn Quốc.
Như bên Hàn Quốc à? Thì cảm ơn ba em.
On September the 23rd, one of South Korean leading finance groups, the Golden Bridge Finance Group, officially announced its new offices in Vietnam. The $300 million group, with its expertise and experience in banking, securities, fund management, insurance, and credit ratings, is expected to be the catalyst for Vietnam's financial sector at the doorstep of the World Trade Organization accession. However, what is unique about Golden Bridge is that it is owned by a famous Korean businessman, a descendant of the royal Lee family of Vietnam. This golden bridge between Vietnam and Korea has returned to Vietnam to his own business and setting the foundation to live permanently in Vietnam.
Let's welcome another special guest to Talk Vietnam today. He is Mr. Lee Sang-jun, the president of the Golden Bridge Financial Group. Pleasure. Xin chào. Please have a seat, sir. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Jun. Now, the total assets of Golden Bridge is $300 million US. It's a big figure. Now, how big is your company in South Korea?
Compared with the scale of Vietnamese companies, ours seem to be a big one. But in South Korea, we are just a medium-sized financial group. The company was established in 2000. Now, our assets have reached a total value of $3 million US. We have 10 subsidiaries.
So, outside of South Korea, Vietnam, does your company have any other branches around the world?
We do not have any branch offices abroad, but we have one company in Vietnam, which we just set up in Hanoi. We have made plans to expand our business to other countries, but ours in Vietnam work as our second headquarters rather than our branch. So Golden Bridge had a headquarters in South Korea and another in Vietnam. If it worked as a branch, it would be controlled by the headquarters based in South Korea. But here in Vietnam, our company is run by leaders of its own.
Now, you are one of the most successful South Korean men of Vietnamese heritage. Was that a difficult process? Was that hard?
Wherever you are, doing business is always a challenge. We re-established our group 4 times to make it like it is today. During the IMF crisis in 1997, when a lot of businesses went bankrupt, I myself suffered failure 7 times. I worked as an assistant to a member of the National Assembly for 3 years, but finally, I realized that I was born to do business. In 2000, I set up a company with an initial capital of $1 million US. With the experience I learned from earlier failures, I've tried to work hard, and at last, fortune has smiled on me. We've had to overcome a mountain of difficulties to gain what we have now. In terms of scale, over the last 6 years, our group has been expanded 100 times over.
These relaxing moments are rare for chairman of Golden Bridge Finance Group Lee Sang-jun to escape work. Walking alone on the noisy streets and seeing the people hurrying to and fro, Lee Sang-jun feels free and relaxed. he finds the field of developing and changing capital both similar and different from what he had experienced in South Korea. At work and in daily life, Lee Sang-jun is respected by his friends, colleagues and employees as a smart, logical and sensitive businessman.
He has a passion to contribute to the Vietnamese development. I think he loves Vietnam very much.
Chairman Lee Sang-jun is one of the first financial investors of South Korea coming to Vietnam. He has gained initial success here. He can make effect for his work and attract other investors into Vietnam.
After a hard day at work, when Hanoi is seeing the beautiful weather of autumn, this golden-rich chairman loves to chat with his friends by the salt lake, or just simply enjoy a few rounds of salsa dancing before a new day full of meetings and work.
So it looks like you have a pretty fun lifestyle here. How would you compare life in Korea and life here?
Over the last year, I've lived both in Vietnam and South Korea. I have flown between Hanoi and Seoul for 30 times over the past 4 years. After a long time living in Hanoi, I find Seoul a bit strange when returning there. It's partly because Seoul has different climate and its streets look cleaner. Hanoi makes me feel as if I were transported back to my childhood in South Korea in the old days when the country remained in difficulty. Đà Nẵng, Vũng Tàu, Hội An, Nha Trang, Hải Phòng, Quảng Ngãi, Vĩnh Phúc are among developing cities in Vietnam. But there are still poor rural areas. The villages there remind me of my old village. I find a lot of similarities between the slum areas near the Red River and that in Seoul in the past. I'm really surprised to see that while Vietnamese women work very hard, many men seem to do nothing. Many times, I've seen them sitting idle on both sides of the roads, watching women working. In the past, women in South Korea were the same. But now it's different.
So when did you find out about your Vietnamese ancestry?
4 years ago, I watched a 1-hour TV program in South Korea named Return to Homeland After 800 Years. It showed the family line of Lý Hòa Sơn, all the great-grandchildren of King Lý Thái Tổ. I asked my mother whether it was correct. She said yes, further explaining that Lý Hòa Sơn family in Ung Chin originated from a king's family in Vietnam.
So Vietnam is, it's a country that is changing. It's changing very quickly. What part and what contribution do you see yourself making in Vietnam's transformation?
Vietnam has changed a lot since I first came here 4 years ago. Compared with 20 years before đổi mới, things have changed dramatically. By hosting APEC Summit and with its entrance to the WTO now around the corner, Vietnam is more widely known all over the world. More investors have come to Vietnam to seek business opportunities. Our company specializes in restructuring and investing in difficult sectors relating to finance. Vietnamese state-owned enterprises being equitized will need restructuring, joint venture, management, construction and more. We want to join this process as an advisor and investor.
Now you say that there is, with investing, in a country also comes social responsibility. Can you explain that a little bit more?
As far as I know, socially responsible investment is the norm that was first introduced by the female South Korean fund manager who was renowned in the 1970s for her talent in managing her investment fund. She earned massive profits from her investments in different companies like tobacco companies or headphone manufacturing companies. But these companies have conducted bad business activities using her money. That's why she has had to make regulations on social investment responsibility. In Vietnam, we are also applying this principle in our investment.
Dinh Bàng district of Bắc Ninh province is called the original place of the Lee family. And certainly, it is a priority destination for any Korean descendant of the Lee family when they come to Vietnam. Until now, some 100 Vietnamese Koreans have traveled back to Dinh Bàng. Like any people who have left their homeland for a long time, they always go to burn incense at the Lee family's temple. And they rarely miss an anniversary of the Lee ancestors, festivals, or any joint activities of the Lee family members. Their presence and contributions are highly valued by local people in Dinh Bàng district.
Tôi rất trân trọng những cái việc về của các vị ở dòng họ Lý ở đây. Thì chúng tôi cũng nghĩ là đây là những người xa quê hương, dù giàu hay nghèo, dù là danh vị hay không danh vị, nhưng về đây đó là tình cảm rất cao quý. Có một điều là 8 thế kỷ trôi qua, 26 đời nối tiếp, người ta vẫn tìm cái tổ tiên biên cương đại dương. Đó là chuyện chưa từng có trên thế giới. Và đúng như là một nhà sử học Pháp đã về đây cũng đã nói cái việc mà các dòng họ Lý về đây, đó là chuyện chưa từng có trên thế giới.
Lee Sang-jun and Lee Changkun spent the entire day walking around Dinh Bàng district, talking with the village's elderly and enjoying the peaceful moments around the temple. It was time they had to get back to the capital. In the end, they were pulled back by the sweet tunes of Quan Họ folk songs.
It's very touching to see that you both have returned to the homeland of your ancestors. Now we know there's a project called Viet Korea House, Mr. Kun, is that correct? And could you tell us when this project will actually become a reality?
When my business becomes more successful, or if any of the Lee family, like as Mr. Lee Sang-jun, has the same intention and cooperate together, the project will be progressed a lot faster.
Sure.
But most importantly, I want to build a stone monument of meaning I prepared some boards already, so I will show you.
Okay, sure. This is the board. I can put it right here. Okay.
Bằng tiếng Việt, tôn ơn nói xa muôn vạn dặm, hồn liếu tổ quốc xứ Hà Bắc là Việt Nam.
Vietnam. Wow, that's very nice. Very beautiful. Do you see any other kinds of activities for the Lee family here in Vietnam to promote, this kind of family togetherness? Do you have any plans for the future in terms of other activities?
I also want to translate the documentary The Call of Homeland and the historical novel of Lee Long Tuong into Vietnamese and spread them out to all the Vietnamese nations in the world and let them know about our Lee Long Tuong's significance.
The significance of the ancestors. That's great. And you, Mr. Jun, do you have any activities planned ahead?
We got the license to set up our company several weeks ago. As an investor, we'll focus on the sectors that the Vietnamese government is most interested in, including business restructuring and equitization of state-owned enterprises. These are two of the issues Vietnam is paying the most attention to during its economic development.
Now, do you plan on permanently staying in Vietnam?
Since the beginning of this year, I've lived half time in South Korea and the other half in Vietnam. I'll do the same next year. When Hanoi marks its 1000th birthday in 2010, I've moved to live in Vietnam permanently. My staff in Seoul say they feel sorry for me because I will leave my career in South for Vietnam that way. But I told them I wouldn't quit my job in Seoul just because now is a pivotal time for my business here in Vietnam. So I need to be here. And more importantly, Vietnam is my homeland. Returning to Vietnam means returning home.
Well, I think what both of you are doing is just so wonderful. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today. I wish you both the best of luck. That's it for this talk.